was a crisp autumn evening when I heard it. A sound that would change my life forever. A dog's bark, desperate and urgent, piercing through the quiet suburban night. Little did I know this wasn't just any bark. It was a cry for help, a warning, and the beginning of a story that would leave my small town reeling. As I peered out my window, I saw her, a heavily pregnant woman struggling to walk down the sidewalk. Beside her, a scruffy mutt barked incessantly, circling her legs and tugging at her coat. The woman seemed annoyed, trying to shoo the dog away, but something about the scene made my skin crawl. Why was this dog so fixated on her? What did it know that we didn't? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Should I call the police? Or was I overreacting to a simple case of a stray dog bothering a passerby? As I debated what to do, I had no idea that my decision in the next few moments would be the difference between life and death. This is the story of how one dog's unwavering determination uncovered a chilling truth, and how sometimes the most unlikely heroes come with 4 paws and a wagging tail. Her name was Sarah, though I didn't know it at the time. She had moved into our neighborhood just a few weeks ago, keeping to herself and rarely venturing out. The few times I had seen her, she had seemed nervous, always looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone to be following her. That night, as I watched her from my window, I noticed how she clutched her swollen belly protectively. She must have been at least 8 months pregnant, and yet here she was, out alone in the growing darkness. Something about her demeanor seemed off. Her steps were hurried despite her condition, and her eyes darted around frantically. The dog, a scruffy terrier mix with patches of fur missing, continued to bark and circle her. Sarah tried to wave it off, even attempting to kick at it half-heartedly, but the dog was relentless. It was as if it was trying to tell her something, warn her of some unseen danger. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't normal dog behavior. In all my years living in this quiet town, I had never seen anything like it. The dog's desperation was palpable, its barks growing more frantic by the second. Unable to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut any longer, I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered over the keypad, hesitating. What if I was wrong? What if this was all just a misunderstanding, and I ended up embarrassing myself, or worse, getting someone in trouble unnecessarily? But as I looked back out the window, I saw Sarah stumble. She caught herself on a nearby fence, her face contorted in pain. The dog's barking reached a fever pitch. That was it. I dialed 99911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's calm voice came through. I'm not sure if this is an emergency, I stammered, suddenly feeling foolish, but there's a pregnant woman outside my house, and a dog won't stop barking at her. Something doesn't feel right. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I held my breath, waiting for the dispatcher to tell me I was overreacting. Instead, she said, "We'll send a unit to check it out. Can you give me your address?" Relief washed over me as I provided the details. As I hung up, I saw Sarah regain her composure and continue walking, the loyal dog still at her heels. I prayed the police would arrive soon. It felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was only a few minutes before I heard the distant wail of sirens. A police cruiser turned onto our street, its lights flashing, but siren now silent. I watched as it pulled up beside Sarah, who had made it about a block down the road. 2 officers stepped out, approaching Sarah cautiously. The dog, instead of running away as I expected, seemed to calm down at the sight of the police. It sat down next to Sarah, its tail wagging slightly as if relieved that help had finally arrived. From my vantage point, I couldn't hear what was being said, but I saw Sarah shake her head vehemently. She gestured wildly, pointing down the street and then at her stomach. The officers looked concerned, one of them speaking into his radio, while the other gently led Sarah towards the cruiser. Suddenly, Sarah doubled over in pain. The officers rushed to support her, helping her into the back of the police car. The dog, amazingly, jumped in after her without hesitation. Within moments, they were speeding away, leaving me standing at my window, bewildered and worried. What had I just witnessed? Was Sarah in danger? Was she in labor? And what role did that persistent dog play in all of this? It wasn't until the next day that I learned the full story, and it was more shocking than I could have ever imagined. Sarah, it turned out, had escaped from an abusive relationship just a month earlier. Her ex-boyfriend, a man named Mark, had been controlling and violent, his behavior escalating when he learned of Sarah's pregnancy. Fearing for her life and the life of her unborn child, Sarah had fled in the night, leaving everything behind. She had come to our town hoping to start a new life, but Mark had somehow tracked her down. The night I saw her, she had received a threatening message from him saying he was coming for her. Sarah had been trying to leave town again, despite being so close to her due date. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. The dog, later named Hero by the police, wasn't a stray at all. He belonged to Sarah's elderly neighbor who had passed away just days before. Hero had somehow sensed Sarah's distress and had been trying to prevent her from leaving, knowing she needed help. As the police sped Sarah to the hospital, they learned that she had gone into premature labor, likely triggered by the stress of the situation. Her contractions were already dangerously close together. Meanwhile, another police unit was dispatched to intercept Mark, who was indeed on his way to town with malicious intent. They managed to apprehend him just outside the city limits, finding a gun and duct tape in his car. The thought of what might have happened if Sarah had managed to leave on her own is chilling. At the hospital, Sarah's labor progressed rapidly. The doctors were concerned about the baby's heart rate and prepared for an emergency C-section. Through it all, Hero refused to leave Sarah's side, having to be forcibly removed from the delivery room by a kind-hearted nurse who promised to keep an eye on him. As Sarah was wheeled into surgery, the entire hospital seemed to hold its breath. The staff had been briefed on her situation, and everyone was rooting for her and her baby. Outside in the waiting room, Hero paced nervously, whining softly. Hours passed. Finally, a tired but smiling doctor emerged. Against all odds, Sarah had delivered a healthy baby girl. Both mother and child were doing well, considering the circumstances. The relief in the air was palpable. Nurses wiped away tears, and even the tough-looking police officers who had stayed to guard Sarah cracked smiles, but no one was happier than Hero, who, upon hearing the news, let out a joyful bark that echoed through the hospital corridors. In the days that followed, Sarah's story spread through our town like wildfire. People were amazed by her bravery, moved by her struggle, and utterly captivated by Hero's role in saving both her and her baby. The community rallied around Sarah. A local women's shelter offered her a safe place to stay and helped her navigate the legal system to keep Mark behind bars. Donations poured in to help her get back on her feet. And as for Hero, he found his forever home with Sarah and her daughter, whom she named Hope. I had the chance to meet Sarah a few weeks after the incident. As I watched her cradle baby Hope, with Hero loyally lying at her feet, I was struck by the strength and resilience of both human and animal. Sarah's eyes, once filled with fear, now shone with love and determination. I don't know what would have happened if Hero hadn't been there, Sarah told me, her voice thick with emotion. He sensed something was wrong when even I was in denial. He saved us both. Sarah's story didn't just change her life, it changed our entire community. It opened our eyes to the reality of domestic violence and the importance of looking out for one another. The local animal shelter saw a surge in adoptions, with many people inspired by Hero's bravery. Our town implemented a new community watch program, encouraging neighbors to be more vigilant and supportive of each other. Sarah herself, once she was back on her feet, became an advocate for domestic violence survivors, sharing her story to help others find the courage to leave abusive situations. As for me, I'll never forget that night when I heard a dog's desperate bark. It taught me to trust my instincts, to not be afraid to speak up when something doesn't feel right. Sometimes, being a hero doesn't require grand gestures. It can be as simple as making a phone call or, in Hero's case, refusing to stay silent in the face of danger. Months passed and Sarah and Hope thrived in their new life. Hero remained their faithful protector, his devotion unwavering. He seemed to have a special bond with Hope, always gentle around her, watching over her crib as she slept. Sarah often joked that Hero thought he was Hope's father, and in many ways he was. He had been there from the beginning, fighting for her life before she was even born. Their connection was something truly special to witness. As Hope grew, taking her first steps and saying her first words, Hero was always there, tail wagging, ready to celebrate every milestone. And when Hope's first clear word was hero, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Sarah's story serves as a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the incredible intuition of animals. It shows us that heroes can come in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes salvation comes with a wagging tail and a wet nose. For those who might be in situations similar to Sarah's, her message is clear. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people and even animals out there who want to help you. And for the rest of us, Sarah's story is a call to action. It reminds us to be vigilant, to be kind, and to be brave enough to intervene when we sense someone is in trouble. We may not all have a hero by our side, but we can all strive to be heroes in our own way. Today, Sarah, Hope, and Hero are thriving. Sarah has become a beacon of hope for many, sharing her story at shelters and support groups. Hope is growing into a strong, confident little girl with Hero never far from her side. As for Hero, he's become something of a local celebrity. Children stop to pet him on the street, and he's been made an honorary member of the police force. But despite all the attention, he remains focused on his most important job, protecting and loving his family. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope can be found. Sometimes it comes in the form of a helping hand, sometimes in the form of a community coming together, and sometimes, just sometimes, it comes with four paws and a heart of gold. So the next time you hear a dog bark, pay attention. It might just be trying to tell you something important. After all, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear collars.